The average American salary today is $62,000 a year. That's a number they tell you defines a good life, but for a lot of you watching this, that number feels more like a cage. In this video, we're going to look at the exit door. Picture this. It is 6:47 in the morning. Your alarm did not wake you up. The sun did. There is no commute. There is no inbox. There is no performance review. There is no fluorescent light humming above your head while someone else decides whether you are worth keeping. There is just you, the grass, the animals, and the work. That is not a fantasy. That is a math problem. And today, we are going to solve it. The average American salary is $62,000 a year. That is a number the system hands you and calls it a life. But for a lot of you watching this right now, that number does not feel like success. It feels like a leash. So today, we are going to find out exactly how many animals it takes to cut that leash for good. We are going to break down sheep, goats, and cattle, the real numbers, from a real ranch. And by the end of this video, you are going to know whether the door out of the rat race is actually open. And more importantly, whether you can afford to walk through it. Stay with me, because the numbers we are about to get into will surprise you. $62,000 a year. Let us take that apart. That is $5,166 every single month. Break it down further, and you get $170 a day. Every day the sun comes up, your operation needs to produce $170 of net profit to match what the average American earns punching someone else's clock. Now, $170 a day does not sound like a mountain. It sounds manageable, but the question is not whether the number is manageable. The question is what it actually takes to produce it. And the answer to that question depends entirely on which animals you choose to build your life around. We are going to look at three paths, three very different roads to the same destination. And I am going to tell you which one I would take if I was starting from zero tomorrow. But first, we start with the quiet ones. There is something about sheep that people underestimate. They do not have the drama of goats or the romance of cattle. They are not glamorous. They are not trending. They are just steady. And in the business of building a life, steady wins. Here is what the numbers look like on our ranch. A single ewe, managed well and brought to market correctly, averages about $300 in net profit. Not gross. Net. After feed, after health costs, after everything. $300 per ewe. To hit $62,000 in annual income, you need 200 of those ewes producing at that average. 200 head. Now, I know what some of you just felt. 200 sheep sounds like a lot. And it is. I am not going to sit here and tell you otherwise. But let me give you some context, because the numbers change when you understand what 200 sheep actually looks like on the ground. On good pasture here in the Ozarks, you can run 5 sheep per acre. That means 200 ewes need 40 acres. 40 acres. That is not a corporation. That is a homestead. That is a piece of land that a family can actually acquire, manage, and pass down. And on that 40 acres, you are producing a full-time income. But here's what the number does not tell you. 200 ewes is not just a number in a spreadsheet. It is lambing season. It is 2 in the morning in January when the temperature drops and you have got 3 ewes due at the same time. It is a learning curve of recognizing which animals are thriving and which ones need intervention before you lose them. I have a full breakdown video on what $10,000 invested in sheep actually returns, the gritty side, the loss rates, the real math. Link is in the description. Watch that before you commit to anything. But for today, the baseline is this: 200 ewes, 40 acres, $62,000 a year. That is a sheep path, and it is a real path, one that working people have walked for generations. But what if 200 animals feels like too big a place to start? What if you want a faster return, a more explosive growth curve, and a market that is genuinely screaming for product right now? Then we need to talk about goats. I am going to say something that I genuinely believe and that most people in agriculture are still sleeping on. Goats are the single biggest untapped opportunity in American agriculture right now. Not in 10 years. Right now. Today. And here's why. We are importing 300 million pounds of lamb into this country every year and 100 million pounds of goat meat on top of that. The domestic market cannot keep up with demand. The door is not cracked open. It is standing wide open, and most ranchers are still walking past it to get to the cattle pen. Goats are prolific in a way that changes the financial math entirely. A well-managed doe does not just give you one kid. She gives you twins, sometimes triplets. And those kids hit market weight faster than most people expect. That compound growth, 2, sometimes 3 saleable animals per breeding female per year, is what makes the numbers move. On our ranch, a single doe averages $325 in net profit. That is $25 more per animal than the sheep, and the herd size required is smaller. To hit $62,000 a year with goats, you are looking at 180 to 190 does. That is 10 to 20 fewer animals in the sheep path at a higher return per animal. You still need your 40 acres. The stocking rate is similar, but the ceiling on what this herd can become is higher because of the reproductive math. Now, I want to be honest with you about something, because I think too many agriculture content creators sell the dream without the weight that comes with it. 190 does is not a quiet life. Goats have personality. They have opinions. They will test your fences, your patience, and your problem-solving ability in ways that sheep simply do not. Managing a goat herd at that scale is a full-time occupation, not a side hustle, not a weekend project. You trade one full-time job for another. But here is the difference. You are working for yourself. You are building equity in land and livestock. You are learning skills that compound over years. And you are in a market that is actively hungry for what you are producing. But if I am being completely honest, and if you have been watching this channel for any length of time, you know I always am. I know that most of you did not click on this video because you are dreaming about goats. You clicked because of the cattle. Nobody ever left their 9 to 5 because they were dreaming of a goat pen. You watch the show. You know the aesthetic. The wide brim hat. The leather gloves worn soft from years of real work. The truck that earns its mud. The kind of land that makes a person feel like they are finally standing on something real. The cowboy life. And I am not going to pretend it is not everything it looks like. There is a reason cattle have represented wealth and freedom across every culture in human history. There is something in the way a herd moves across open land that reaches somewhere deep in the chest. But if you are serious about building a life around cattle, and I mean actually serious, not just romantically serious, then you need to hear what I'm about to tell you clearly. The cattle life is the hardest one to buy, not because of the work. The sheep and goat ranchers work just as hard. The barrier is not physical. The barrier is financial. And in today's market, that barrier is higher than it has ever been. Here is where we are right now. The cattle market is not just hot. It is extraordinary, historic, even, and what that means to someone trying to break in is that the entry price has reached a level that demands serious respect. Last year, after every expense was accounted for, every fence post, every bag of mineral, every veterinary visit, our operation averaged $2,000 in net profit per cow. $2,000. That is the highest per animal return of anything we have discussed today. To match $62,000 in annual income at that return, you need 31 mama cows. 31. After 200 sheep and 190 goats, 31 sounds almost laughably small. Like, surely that cannot be right. Surely there is a catch. There is. To buy those 31 cows in today's market, if you can find quality bred cows at $4,000 a head, and you should move fast because that price will not last, you are looking at a starting investment of $124,000. Compare that to $54,000 for goats, $60,000 for sheep. Cattle require more than double the upfront capital just to get out of the gate. Before you have bought a pound to feed, before you have strung a single strand of wire, before you have done a single day of work. And then there is the land. Sheep and goats on good pasture, 5 head per acre. 200 sheep or 190 goats, 40 acres. A homestead, a manageable foundation, something a working family can build toward. Cattle, 1 cow per 3 acres, and that is on prime, cleared, maintained grass. Not woods, not brush, not rough ground. Grass, 31 cows, nearly 100 acres of premium pasture. I love my cows. I will never run this ranch without them. But I want to be honest with you the way I wish someone had been honest with me early on. If you are starting from zero, with limited capital and a dream in your chest, cattle are not the smartest first move. They are the goal. They should be the goal. But goals are built toward. Here's what I would do if I woke up tomorrow with nothing but a piece of land, some working capital, and a decision already made that I was done working for someone else. I would start with sheep and goats. Not because they are more romantic, not because they are easier, they are not, but because the efficiency math in those early years is everything. 40 acres, 190 does, 20 ewes to start building alongside them, small enough to learn on, large enough to generate real income. And with the goat herd's reproductive rate, that operation grows itself. Every year the foundation gets stronger. Every year the margin for error gets wider. Every year you are building toward the thing you actually want. And then, when the foundation is solid, when the land is paid down and the operation is producing, you bring in the cattle, not as a replacement, as an addition, because the ranchers who build real generational wealth are not the ones who bet everything on one animal. They are the ones who diversify their production and let each species do what it does best. The demand is already there. 300 million pounds of lamb imported into this country every year. 100 million pounds of goat. The domestic market is behind. Producers who step into that gap right now, who build efficient operations on manageable land, are not fighting for scraps. They are walking into open space. The math is not the hard part. Running 200 sheep or 190 does or 31 cows is not the hard part. The hard part is a decision. The moment when you stop running the numbers in your head during your lunch break and you start running them on paper with a plan attached. That is the gap between dreaming about this life and actually living it. And that gap is a lot smaller than most people think. Every ranch starts the same way, with someone who refused to accept that the office was the only option. Someone who looked at the math, felt the weight of it, and decided that the weight was worth carrying because at least it was theirs. The numbers we walk through today are not a guarantee. They are a baseline, a spark. Every piece of land is different. Every market is different. Every rancher who sends me their numbers has a story that does not fit perfectly into any formula. But the principle is the same everywhere. The demand is real. The land can provide. And the math, when you actually sit down and work it through, is far more forgiving than the system wants you to believe. This is the math of freedom. Now you know what it costs. The question is whether you are ready to pay for it. If this video gave you something, a number, a direction, a reason to keep thinking about this, hit that like button. And if you are not subscribed to Livestock Labs yet, this is a channel where we do not dress the numbers up. We break down real ranch economics, real production data, and real strategies for people who are serious about building something of their own in agriculture. Subscribe so you do not miss what we are putting out next. Drop your numbers in the comments. Tell me what animal you would start with, what land you are working with, what the market looks like where you are. I read every single one. This channel grows because of those conversations, and some of the best adjustments I have made to this operation came from the comment section. And when you are ready for the next piece of the puzzle, the full breakdown of what $10,000 invested in sheep actually returns, start to finish, no sugarcoating, that video is right there waiting for you.